worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, helping Wyoming family farmers deal with drought until I was fired a month ago in the mass firings, and despite only having the highest marks in my performance review, coupled with the tariffs, will decimate Wyoming farms and rural communities. What are you doing about that?
I disagree.
I disagree to the fired worker.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Something otherworldly, astonishing, spectacular is going on across the United Corporations of America. Republicans in the heartland are screaming at their public servants to tax the rich, to deport Elon. In response, Democratic leader Chuck Schumer offering more rump roast to the masses. Can't make this stuff up. This is in Nebraska at Congressman Mike Flood's town hall, as he is absolutely flooded by his constituents chanting something pretty surprising for a Republican crowd.
Okay, let's talk about this. So your proposal to solve this is to tax the rich.
These were a lot of boomers. Props to the right-wing boomers out there in Nebraska. And by this, he was pointing to the countdown clock with the debt. I mean, these sound like Bernie people to me. This is why I've always said, and I told you when I was on the campaign trail in 2016, I was always very, very interesting, sometimes surprising, that when I went to Trump rallies, and I covered way too many of them to recount, I got the therapy bills to prove it. I'd cover Trump rallies and I'd ask folks that were Trump supporters, who's your number two? I was guessing they're going to say Ted Cruz or, I don't know, Ben Carson or whoever was on the Republican clown car at the time. Many, I'm not talking a few, many said Bernie Sanders. They said, I don't agree with him on everything, but he's telling the truth. He's clearly not full of shit like the rest of these people. He's clearly out for the man, the American, working man and woman. They agreed with him on the trade deals. So that's in Nebraska. Now let's move over to Wyoming, where Congresswoman Harriet Hageman, she was the one who took down Liz Cheney in Wyoming. She was out there defending Elon Musk and his chainsaw, indiscriminately, recklessly firing, at this point, who the hell knows, hundreds of thousands of government workers, illegally, by the way. This is her defending Musk, and boy, did she hear it from the folks in Wyoming.
DOGE is not dismantling Social Security. And even with reconciliation, we are not allowed to touch Social Security. The work that I have specifically been doing, I am on the Judiciary Committee and the Natural Resources Committee.
I worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, helping Wyoming family farmers deal with drought until I was fired a month ago in the mass firings, and despite only having the highest marks in my performance review. In a state where so many farmers rely on government programs for drought and disaster relief, Trump's plans to cut these programs and the people who administer them, coupled with the tariffs, will decimate Wyoming farms and rural communities. What are you doing about that?
I disagree. I come from the ag community.
I disagree to the fired worker from U.S. Ag Department. Correctly, by the way, warning that this is going to decimate rural farming in America, these layoffs. They're chanting, deport Elon. And by the way, these are not just Republican voters upset at the unelected, world's richest man given the keys to the kingdom. They are very angry at Republicans basically executing on the longtime fetish to drain the government into the bathtub drain. Make it as small as possible that it could drain in the bathtub. They're against that because they actually benefit from the government. This is a huge opportunity to a opposition party per se. You got longtime Republican voters. Frankly, a lot of older folks are out there. There's younger folks too, but a lot of these audiences are tend to be skew older. If you had an opposition party, someone with a message that was not just Trump bad, vote for us, but actually would offer bold alternatives, I mean, you could win elections for the next 50 years. Instead, we have Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. If you notice, Chucky Sleaze has been under a bit of an avalanche of criticism after he folded like a cheap tent to Trump and Musk, agreed to the deal to continue funding the government called a continuing resolution without getting anything in return. He didn't even negotiate or play hardball. He's been getting criticism from the left. He's been getting criticism from even traditional normie Democrats. There have been calls for him basically to resign as Democratic leader in the Senate. Well, in response to this massive populist outrage from not Bernie people, Republicans, we're talking rock-ribbed Republicans, gun-carrying Republicans, NRA-loving Republicans, he is proposing nothing. Here is just some of his absurd, tone-deaf, out living on Mars response to the criticisms of him when he was interviewed on MSNBC the other night.
There are going to be other opportunities.
But then because what people hear is like, we're going to lie in the cut until they self-destruct. Like, what's the plan? But then what is the strategic plan?
Here is the plan. Here's what we're doing right now, okay? There are two things I want to say. One, every day we are hammering away at Trump. And we have a simple thought that unites the Democratic Party from one end to the other. He's asking the middle class to pay for tax cuts for the billionaires. It unites us all. Bernie Sanders likes it, and my most conservative members like it. We're hammering away at that. Today it was Medicaid. Tomorrow it's going to be, or in the next few days, it's going to be tariffs. He's raising those tariffs, raising your costs, Mr. and Mrs. American, by $2,000 a year if he raises all these tariffs, so that he can use that money for tax cuts for the billionaires. He's cutting your education funds, and so your kids don't get a great education, and your school taxes will go up for that. So we have started doing this day in, day out, every day, fighting relentlessly. His numbers have started to go down from 51 to 47. If we keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, his numbers will be much lower. He will not only be less popular, but less effective. Second, we will find the moments where we shouldn't give them votes. Hakeem and I met yesterday. We're exploring that right now. And there will be times, just like this instance, where people will say, don't give them the votes because you have the leverage. There will be instances, not like this, where a shutdown would ensue, but where we will have the higher ground. And we're going to do it. Watch us.
Okay, but here's what I would say in response to that. And again, I'm channeling people as much as I can.
Hey, this is a democracy still. Let's hope it stays.
Well, here's what I would say is that all of those things you enumerated, which all sound like good politics to me, are the kinds of things that you'd be doing if Mitt Romney were president. That, like, there's this weird asymmetry right now, which is that they are acting in this totally new way, in which they are ambitiously trying to seize all power and create a presidential dictatorship in the United States of America. And the Democratic opposition is acting like, well, if we can get their approval rate down a few points, then what? What happens?
Well, what happens is, look, first, we get it way down. He's going to have much less. This worked in 2017. You say it didn't. Now it's a different government.
It's different, though.
This worked in 2017, you know, before Trump literally handed the government over to the world's richest man, i.e. officially made this an oligarchy, which it already was, but now it's officially in your face, an oligarchy. He said, I mean, you just can't make this up. This man is living on another planet. Here is the plan. Every day we are hammering away at Trump. Do you see the hammer? I know there's a lot of lawsuits Democrats are utilizing in court. They've been successful thus far, many of them, but the workers are still being fired. the cuts are still being made. The Republican budget that cuts Medicaid nearly $1 trillion is going to happen. They're trying to backdoor privatize Social Security by gutting the Social Security Administration and therefore making the Social Security Administration not work, getting rid of call centers that seniors could call so that when the agency is so decrepit, so dysfunctional, they could say, hey, Social Security doesn't work. The government can't do it. We're going to privatize it. That's the plan here. He's saying we're hammering away at Trump. How are we doing it? By having the same exact message we've had for 20 years. The Republicans are trying to raise your taxes. Excuse me. The Republicans are trying to give massive tax cuts for the rich and have you pay for it. Okay, there's truth to that, but you lost in 2016 when your whole message was, but Trump, but the Republicans. You don't have a choice. Vote for us. You lost in 2016 with that message. You almost lost in 2020. People don't remember that Biden barely won in 2020. And if not for a once-in-a-century pandemic, he would have lost. They didn't have a message. Biden didn't have a message. People just were very, very opposed to Trump, particularly his horrendous mismanagement of the pandemic, which was fresh in people's minds. They were living through the worst of it. So they said, anybody but Trump. 4 years later, after Trump literally illegally initiated, sparked an attempted coup. Yes, sorry, MAGA, it was an attempted coup of our country. He won re-election because there was no message. There was no policy that the Democrats were running on. Kamala ran on an opportunity economy, whatever that means. Tax credits. There was no actual alternative. It was just vote for us, fascism. Vote for us, save democracy. When most people's experience day to day, they don't have a functioning democracy helping them, providing a safety net. So instead of using this opportunity where you have, honestly, I've never seen it. I'm young, I'm 38, but in my life, I've never seen this type of Republican revolt, not just against government cutting, but seemingly Republicans are revolting for populist progressive policies. They want more action by the government, not just to protect what's theirs, but to give them more. That is a huge opening to an intelligent politician that is not purchased by donors and Wall Street, which Chucky Sleeze certainly is. But his answer is Trump's asking the middle class to pay for tax cuts for the billionaires. We're hammering away at that. Today it was Medicaid. Tomorrow it's going to be tariffs. He's raising your costs, Mr. and Mrs. American, by $2,000 a year so that he could use that money for tax cuts for billionaires. That's all fine and well, but you're not giving people something to vote for. And the devil's advocate would say, well, Jordan, when the house is on fire, you just got to put the house out. So right now, Schumer is correctly, this is a devil's advocate argument, bringing everybody's attention to Trump and the Republicans and their devastating, I think, illegal, dictatorial slashing of the government, slashing of the safety nets, which are not adequate enough to begin with. But the Democratic Party's approval rating is down somewhere to lice and toe fungus. So just being against Trump, it's already shown it's not going to work. And he's talking about it worked for us in 2017 when we did it. He even in that interview talked about things using similar playbooks that worked for them to take back Congress in 2007 and 2006. What planet are you living? This is 2025. We're living on a megalomaniac, kleptocratic duo of Trump, Musk, well, trio, if you add Vance. The government's been seized by techno-feudalists, tech feudalists. And this is what we're getting? And by the way, it gets worse. Remember, Schumer infamously in 2016, through his political wisdom, if you remember this, Schumer was the brilliant one who said,
for every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2, 3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois and Wisconsin.
She lost under that exact strategy. Meaning his brilliance was, let's try to cater to the Republican Party with Republican-light policies, not populist progressive policies, like I'm saying to do. And Hillary Clinton lost to a used car salesman reality TV star. And it just came out, this is from The Guardian, an excerpt of a new book, that Schumer thought that not only that Kamala Harris was going to win, but he thought Republicans would expel Trump. That remember Obama saying the fever would break? Chuck Schumer clung to belief Republicans would expel Trump, book says. He insisted Republicans would move on from Donald Trump and go back to a past version of the party, even as Trump's return to power loomed last year, according to the authors of a new book on politics during the Biden administration. The revelation comes as Trump's second term has begun in a flurry of radical policy moves that have rocked the U.S. political landscape and triggered fears of a slide into authoritarianism. It also comes amid serious Democratic backlash against Schumer for failing to provide stiff enough resistance to Trump's actions. Schumer told Annie Carney and Luke Broadwater, here's my hope. After this election, when the Republican Party expels the turd of Donald Trump, it will go back to being the old Republican Party. You could have political miscalculations. It happens. You could have miscalculations in anything in life, not just politics. But when you're constantly wrong and when you are literally advocating to respond to fascism, I think it's fascism at this point, folks, and I don't use that word lightly. When your response is to deploy the same tactics you used 20 years ago and to deploy the same message you've used for 25 to 30 years, they want to cut taxes for the billionaires and the wealthy and cut your programs to pay for it, which is BS anyway. I believe in modern monetary theory. Taxes don't pay for federal spending, but that's another discussion. When you are using the same playbook of 30 years, which is the milquetoast neoliberal playbook, because that's all your donors will allow you to do, instead of responding to Republicans screaming tax the rich, Republicans screaming deport Elon, Republicans screaming keep your hands off my Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Republicans screaming against unelected billionaires running the government, i.e. fascism. The answer is to offer them bold alternatives, not offer them rump roast. Can't say I'm surprised, but this kind of political strategy, honestly, it's not going to result in a tidal wave for Democrats. It's going to result in more people becoming so disgusted they just don't vote.